In the Canadian capital of Ottawa stands a monumental bronze statue of a man with arms outstretched, a wide-brimmed hat held in each hand. Titled rather unimaginatively, "The Man with Two Hats," the sculpture is a copy of an identical statue at Apeldoorn Palace in the Netherlands, the two figures facing each other across nearly 6,000 kilometers of land and ocean. Designed by Dutch artist Henk Visch and installed in 2002, The Man with Two Hats celebrates the strong bond between Canada and the Netherlands, a bond also celebrated by Ottawa's annual Tulip Festival, in which over 1 million bulbs are planted throughout the city. The close relationship dates back to the Second World War, when the Canadian Army played a pivotal role in liberating the Netherlands from the Nazis. Canada also played host to the Dutch royal family, who were forced to flee their homelands following its invasion and occupation in May 1940. While far preferable to life under the Nazis, this exile came with many challenges, though perhaps none as unexpected or as bizarre as a 1943 incident in which part of Ottawa Hospital was temporarily declared foreign territory in order to avoid a succession crisis. This is the strange tale of the birth of Princess Margriet. In the late 1930s, the Netherlands enjoyed cordial relations with Germany. During the First World War, the Netherlands had remained neutral, saving it from German invasion, but not from interference by the Entente powers. In a bid to starve Germany into submission, Entente ships blockaded Dutch ports, leading to severe shortages and severely irritating the Dutch government, particularly its 60-year-old head of state, Queen Wilhelmina. Consequently, following the armistice of 1918, Wilhelmina showed solidarity with Germany by granting asylum to the deposed Kaiser Wilhelm II, who lived in exile in the Dutch city of Doorn until his death in 1941. When Germany invaded Poland in September 1939, the Netherlands again declared neutrality, confident that it would once again escape invasion. But Adolf Hitler had other plans, seeking to fold the Aryan nations of Western Europe into his Third Reich. On May the 10th, Hitler launched Fall Gelb, or Case Yellow, a lightning invasion of France and the Low Countries. Using modern tactics including paratroopers, aerial bombardment, and armoured spearheads, German forces swiftly overran the Netherlands, the Dutch capitulating after only a week of fighting. Belgium followed a week later, and France a week after that, in one of the most stunning victories in the history of modern warfare. And for more on how Germany used airborne forces in that invasion, please do check out our previous video, How the Nazis Managed to Capture the World's Strongest Fortress in Less Than 20 Minutes. Despite her distrust of the British faced with the Nazi onslaught, Queen Wilhelmina agreed to let the Royal Navy evacuate her and her family. On May the 12th, 1940, the royals and other members of the Dutch government travelled in a Dutch National Bank armoured car to The Hague, and there they boarded the British destroyer HMS Hereward. Wilhelmina originally planned to sail to the then still unoccupied Dutch province of Zeeland, but when the total collapse of the country appeared imminent, HMS Hereward instead diverted to Britain, arriving on May the 13th. Queen Wilhelmina wasted no time establishing a Dutch government in exile in London and began making regular radio broadcasts on the BBC to raise the morale of her subjects back home. While the rest of the royal family initially resided in London, with a German invasion of the British Isles deemed imminent, Wilhelmina worried about their safety. Luckily, Wilhelmina's daughter, Princess Juliana, had been offered asylum by Alexander Cambridge, 1st Earl of Athlone, the Governor-General of Canada. Thus, Juliana, along with their young daughters, Princess Beatrix, aged 2, and Princess Irene, aged 9 months, boarded the ship to Halifax, arriving on June the 11th. Left behind was Juliana's husband, Prince Bernard of Lippe-Biesterfeld, who had become a fighter pilot in the Royal Air Force and would go on to fly over 1,000 combat hours during the war. Juliana and her daughters settled in Ottawa, officially staying at the Governor-General's residence at Rideau Hall. Indeed, Rideau Hall would serve as a refuge for a number of exiled European royals, including Prince Olav and Princess Martha of Norway, Grand Duchess Charlotte and Prince Felix of Luxembourg, and Empress Zita of Austria. The Dutch royals later relocated to a house at 120 Lansdowne Road, which they dubbed Nooit Gedacht, or Never Imagined, and finally Stornoway House at 541 Acacia Drive, today the official residence of the Canadian Parliament's Leader of the Opposition. Though the family adapted quickly to life in Canada, it was not without its challenges. Wartime rationing was in full effect, meaning that even for royals, many food staples, including sugar, tea, coffee, and butter, were hard to come by. The winter of 1942 to 1943 was also one of Ottawa's coldest on record, but Juliana found herself facing a rather more unique problem, one that would require an equally unique solution. On September the 21st, 1942, Prince Bernard announced over the BBC's Radio Orange that Princess Juliana was pregnant and would give birth early the following year. The news was greeted with celebration by the Dutch people, even appearing in the diary of Anne Frank, quote, "I sometimes listen to the Dutch broadcasts from London. Prince Bernard recently announced that Princess Juliana is expecting a baby in January, which I think is wonderful. For the Dutch government in exile, however, the announcement raised the spectre of succession crisis. Under the doctrine of jus soli, or birthright citizenship, a person is automatically granted citizenship of the country in which they are born. Thus, if born in Ottawa, Princess Juliana's child would automatically become a Canadian citizen and thus a British subject, disqualifying them from the Dutch royal line of succession. To get around this, the British Crown pulled a clever legal trick, declaring the maternity ward at Ottawa's Civic Hospital, where Juliana was to give birth, to no longer be Canadian territory. The official decree by King George VI, published in the Canada Gazette on December 24th, 1942, read that any place in Canada within which Her Royal Highness the Princess Juliana of the Netherlands may be confined shall, for the period of the lying in and to the extent of the actual occupation for such purpose, be extraterritorial, and for such purpose Her Royal Highness the Princess Juliana and any child that shall be born shall be accorded immunity from criminal, civil, and military jurisdiction, whether dominion or provincial. Contrary to popular belief, the decree did not convert the maternity ward into sovereign Dutch territory. Rather, it simply declared the ward to be extraterritorial, meaning Canada relinquished all legal jurisdiction over it. According to international law, in areas considered extraterritorial, jus soli no longer applies. Instead, according to the doctrine of jus sanguinis, or blood birthright, a baby automatically acquires the citizenship of its parents. As jus sanguinis is followed by Dutch nationality law, this meant that Juliana's child would be born a Dutch citizen and thus retain their place in the line of succession. The area covered by the decree comprised 4 rooms on the 3rd floor of the Civic Hospital, 1 for Juliana, 1 for the baby, 1 for a nurse, and 1 for a security guard, all decorated with the Dutch flag. And whether by design or happy coincidence, the rooms faced onto Holland Avenue. On January 18th, 1943, Princess Juliana, suffering from mumps and due to give birth any day, was admitted to the maternity ward. Around 7 p.m. the following day, a baby girl was born weighing 7 pounds 5 ounces. She was named Margriet Francisca, after the flower which had become the symbol of the Dutch resistance. Prince Bernard, who had flown to Ottawa for the birth, phoned his mother-in-law in London to deliver the good news, while the announcement was officially made to reporters waiting at Ottawa's Chateau Laurier Hotel and broadcast around the world. News of Margaret's birth was greeted with jubilation around the world, especially in the Netherlands, providing a much-needed morale boost in a nation suffering under Nazi occupation. As the underground Dutch newspaper De Oranjekrant wrote, "Little Margriet, you will be our princess of peace. We long to have you in our midst. Come soon, Margriet. We are awaiting you with open arms." In Ottawa, the birth dominated the headlines for 3 days. In celebration, the Dutch flag was flown atop the Parliament buildings, the first time a foreign flag was so honoured, while the building's Carillion chimes played the Dutch national anthem. In traditional style, Canadians of Dutch descent celebrated the birth by eating beschuit met moesjes, twice-baked bread topped with sugar and anise seeds that I'm absolutely pronouncing incorrectly, though due to rationing, the taste reportedly left much to be desired. Princess Margriet was baptised at Ottawa's St Andrew's Presbyterian Church on June 29th, 1943. In attendance were her father, Prince Bernard, her grandmother, Queen Philhelmina, the Governor-General and Canadian Prime Minister William Leon Mackenzie King. Margaret's godparents included US President Franklin D. Roosevelt, Queen Mary of the United Kingdom, Martha, Crown Princess of Norway, and somehow the entire Dutch Merchant Navy. The princess and her family remained in Canada for the duration of the war, only returning to the Netherlands after its liberation in May 1945. Here, again, Canada played a significant role. Following numerous failed attempts by British and American forces to capture the Netherlands, including the ill-fated Operation Market Garden airborne assault in September 1944, the country was finally liberated by the 1st Canadian Army under the command of General Henry Carrera at a cost of some 7,600 personnel killed in action. As a token of gratitude for all Canada had done for her family and her country during the war, in the fall of 1945, Princess Juliana presented the city of Ottawa with a gift of 100,000 tulip bulbs. The tradition has continued ever since, forming the basis of Ottawa's annual Tulip Festival. Every spring, the city plants more tulips than any place on earth outside of the Netherlands, a colourful and powerful symbol of the nation's unique relationship. In 1948, Queen Philhelmina abdicated her throne in favour of her daughter Juliana and retired to Hetloo Palace in Apeldoorn, dying in 1962 at the age of 82. Juliana reigned for 32 years before abdicating in favour of her daughter Beatrix, dying in 2004 at the age of 94. As for Princess Margriet, whose place in the line of succession had taken such creative legal manoeuvring to secure, after studying jurisprudence and constitutional law at Leiden University in 1966, began volunteering as a nursing auxiliary for the Netherlands Red Cross. Over the following decades, she would become increasingly involved in the organisation, serving as vice president from 1987 to 2011 and establishing the Princess Margriet Fund to help developing nations better prepare for natural disasters. In 2002, she returned to the city of her birth to unveil the statue of the man with two hats in Commissioners Park. She returns in 2022 to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the liberation of the Netherlands, speaking to veterans, planting tulips at Stornoway House, and unveiling a plaque honouring Canadian General Charles Fawkes, who accepted the surrender of German troops in the Netherlands in 1945. In a speech delivered at the opening festival of the Tulip Festival, Princess Margriet drew parallels between her family's wartime experiences and the recent Russian invasion of Ukraine, stating, "We never thought we would see another war in Europe, yet the Russian act of aggression of an independent sovereign state proves us terribly wrong. It brings war home, along with the realization how vulnerable our freedom is. All the more reason to commemorate and celebrate our precious freedom, which has come at such a high price." And in case you were wondering, no, the 4 rooms of the Civic Hospital maternity ward are not still extraterritorial. As per King George VI's declaration, they reverted back to being Canadian territory the moment Princesses Juliana and Margriet left the building. To this day, Princess Margriet remains the first and thus far only royal ever to be born in North America, all thanks to some creative jurisdictional sleight of hand.